I will yet pour out doctrine as prophecy, and leave it to all ages forever. The wisdom of Jesus, son of Sirach. Chapter 24, verse 33. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us this evening. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Secrets Revealed here on Truth Frequency Radio, and we are continuing this evening our Genesis Revisited series. Rob Skiba joins me as co-host. Rob, are you there, brother?
I am here, Zen. I was just chilling out to your Zen music there in the beginning. Pretty cool.
Right on. Yeah.
What's that from, anyway?
You know, I think it's called the Black Monks or something of that nature, but Chris Gio had selected it.
Oh, he put
I
that
had
in there
sent
for you.
him some of the Destiny Lab stuff.
Oh, that's
which,
cool.
you know, we have that on as well. But
yeah.
So how are you doing this evening?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Yeah, he picked the music for my show, too, except for I have my standard intro music, which I've had since I started on Blog Talk, that I sent to him, but he did my commercial intros and out music. He did a good job. I enjoy it.
Yeah, he does a really good job.
Yeah, so kudos to Chris Gio out there and Truth Frequency Radio. Yeah, man, I'm doing good. I've been teaching myself 3D software Blender and making some progress finally. It's always a daunting task when you open up software and there's like a million, icons and menus for you to choose from, and it's like, what do I do? Yeah. What do I do? And some of the tutorial sites that I've been to don't help that much, really, because like they take for granted that you have some experience in some of this stuff, I think. But I found some guys that are out there like, okay, so if you've just gotten started and you're frustrated with everything out there, we feel your pain and we went through it too, and let's show you what you need to know. And they give you some pretty cool projects to start. And I've actually learned quite a bit in the last week and been able to create some cool props working with a couple other guys sending me stuff. So it's been fun.
Nice. Yeah, it's always exciting to learn to be able to do things with, the tools that are out there. There's so much now available, and I never become an expert at, all the different things. I get by with just learning what I need to know with different things. But
yeah, I'm kind of the same way, sort of a jack of all trades, master of none. I'm constantly, like you, I learn enough to do what I need to do. Then over time, you're like, oh, wow, I didn't know this could do that too. Wow, this could do that too. That's amazing,
Right, right.
It's sort of my journey.
I'm grateful that at least now my son, coming on board and helping out, that he knows a lot of the other stuff that I never was able to pick up and learn, and now I'm able to focus again on the things that I love to do with, just as far as writing books and putting together research and packaging all that up, and it's nice to be liberated from all that.
Yeah. Hey, before I forget, I don't want to run out of time and then forget to mention something. I was going to do a show last night here on TFR, and I realized it was my 200th episode, and I didn't have anything special prepared for it last night, so I was like, I don't want to just do a nothing show for my 200th episode, because I'm pretty sure I did 200 on Blog Talk just before coming over here, and
nice.
And so I thought what might be fun to do next week on my show is, since you're going to be on my show next week, is we'll make that episode 200 and make it a live call-in, ask us anything on the series that we've been doing.
That's a great idea. I think people will really enjoy that, and it will give them a chance to bring up whatever questions they may have, because we've done a lot of information, a lot of shows.
Yeah, we have. Oh, we've done. A friend of mine, he was asking me if I'd ever heard of Brian Goodell. I'm like, yeah, of course I have. He's a friend of mine, and this is my best friend growing up. He was asking me this. His name's also Brian. He's like, dude, like, because Brian does he does audiobooks. He does his own reading of his books, and he kind of adds a little flair to a little drama to him. But his fiction novels and whatnot. And my friend Brian was telling me, oh man, he's like, this is so cool. I don't really like reading this stuff, but I love listening to it. And there's so much stuff like in the extra biblical text. I'm like, dude, you have no idea. I said, I've been doing this series for going on almost 200 hours now, probably, because we did I think we did like 100 hours just on Enoch alone. So we've got to be pushing 200 for everything that we've done so far. So I literally just, because I've got all our shows that we're doing, you and I, in a playlist. So people can go back to the beginning at Genesis 1 and start there. I said, if you like the stuff that complements the biblical narrative, this is several hundred hours worth of content for you. So he's like, yeah, cool, man. So.
Oh yeah, if he hasn't started yet, he's got a lot of catching up to do.
He'll be watching for a long time. So yeah, good. That's awesome, man. So. Just for everybody out there, think about what we've been doing so far. If you've enjoyed this series, I suppose we could take questions on other topics too, but I think it would be fun to do a Q&A just on what we've covered in Genesis and Jasher and Jubilees and writings of Abraham and Targums and, Enoch, Jasher, all that stuff. So we'll plan on that next weekend. And I enjoyed the Q&A, Ask Us Anything that we did together at the conference there a few weeks back. That was fun. Yeah. So. Cool.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Awesome.
Perfect way to segment into the 200th show. So, yeah, I look forward to that.
All right, right on. Well, and this is people, man. People are just this is going to be hard for some. Hopefully, it's a very few people in our audience to understand. Hopefully, it's just a few people that aren't going to get this. But just so you know, the number 666 follows 665. So I know it's insane. It's crazy. I know it's crazy. The last show that I did on my channel was a virtual house church this last weekend, and apparently was the 666th episode that I did, and that I've uploaded to my YouTube channel. And of course, I was talking political in the beginning of it and stuff. Like, see, this is proof Rob Skiba's Illuminati, Jesuit, shill, Freemason, whatever.
Masonic shill.
See, episode 666. I'm like, wow. I'd like to think you're kidding, but sadly, I don't think you are.
Right, no.
So we're past that now. This episode right here on my YouTube channel is 667.
Right on. Well, I'm glad I wasn't on with that one.
You need one more thing, right?
Got, left out of that. That would be more ammo. Oh yeah, they did this 666 show together.
Do the 200th Q&A episode on 666. That would
right.
Send people through the roof.
So crazy.
But we're past that, so.
Yeah, right on.
And so where are we? I think we are. If I remember last week, I didn't get to the Jasher account of Genesis 14.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's through chapter 16, if memory serves. Let me just look. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, if you're ready, I'll jump right in. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in here. Jasher, chapter 16. At that time, Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, sent to all the neighboring kings, to Nimrod, king of Shinar, who was then under his power, and to Tidal, king of Goyim, and to Arioch, king of Elasar, with whom he made a covenant, saying, Come up to me and assist me, that we may smite all the towns of Sodom and its inhabitants, for they have rebelled against me these 13 years. And these 4 kings went up with all their camps, about 800,000 men, and they went as they were, and smote every man they found in the road. And the 5 kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, and Shemeber, king of Zeboim, Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, and Bela, king of Zoar, went out to meet them, and they all joined together in the valley of Siddim. And these 9 kings made war in the valley of Siddim, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah were smitten before the kings of Elam. And the valley of Siddim was full of lime pits, and the kings of Elam pursued the kings of Sodom, and the kings of Sodom with their camps fled and fell into the slime pits, and all that remained went to the mountain for safety. And the 5 kings of Elam came after them and pursued them to the gates of Sodom, and they took all that there was in Sodom. And they plundered all the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, and his property, and they seized all the goods of the cities of Sodom, and they went away. And Eunuch, Abram's servant, who was in the battle, saw this, and told Abram all that the kings had done to the cities of Sodom, and that Lot was taken captive by them. And Abram heard this, and he rose up with about 318 men that were with him, and he that night pursued these kings and smote them, and they all fell before Abram and his men. And there was none remaining but the 4 kings who fled, and they went each his own road. And Abram recovered all the property of Sodom, and he also recovered Lot and his property, his wives and little ones, and all belonging to him, so that Lot lacked nothing. And when he returned from smiting these kings, he and his men passed the valley of Siddim, where the kings had made war. And Bera, king of Sodom, and the rest of his men that were with him went out from the lime pits into which they had fallen to meet Abram and his men. And Adonizedek, that's interesting, Adonizedek of Jerusalem, the same was Shem, went out with his men to meet Abram and his people with bread and wine, and they remained together in the valley of Melech. And Adonizedek blessed Abram, and Abram gave him 1/10 from all that he had brought from the spoil of his enemies, for Adonizedek was the priest before God. And all the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah who were there with their servants approached Abram and begged of him to return them their servants whom he had made captive, and to take unto himself all the property. And Abram answered the kings of Sodom, saying, As the Lord liveth, who created heaven and earth, and who redeemed my soul from all affliction, and who delivered me this day from my enemies, and gave them into my hand, I will not take anything belonging to you, that you may not boast tomorrow, saying, Abram became rich from our property that he saved. For the Lord my God, in whom I trust, said unto me, Thou shalt lack nothing, for I will bless thee in all the works of thy hands. And now, therefore, behold, here is all belonging to you. Take it and go. As the Lord liveth, I will not take from you from a living soul down to a shoe tie or thread, excepting the expense of the food of those who went out with me to battle, as also the portions of the men who went with me, Anar, Eshcol, and Mamre, they and their men, as well as those also who had remained to watch the baggage. They shall take their portion of the spoil. And the kings of Sodom gave Abram according to all that he had said, and they pressed him to take of whatever he chose, but he would not. And he went, and he sent away the kings of Sodom and the remainder of the men, and gave them orders about Lot, and they went to their respective places. And Lot, his brother's son, he also sent away with his property, and he went with them, and Lot returned to his home to Sodom. And Abram and his people returned to their home, to the plains of Mamre, which is Hebron. At that time the Lord again appeared to Abram in Hebron, and said to him, Do not fear, thy reward is very great before me, for I will not leave thee, until I shall have multiplied thee and blessed thee, and made thy seed like the stars in heaven, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And I will give unto thy seed all these lands that thou seest with thine eyes. To them will I give them for an inheritance forever. Only be strong, and do not fear. Walk before me, and be perfect. And in the 78th year of the life of Abram, in that year died Reu, the son of Peleg, and all the days of Reu were 239 years, and he died. And Sarai, the daughter of Haran, Abram's wife, was still barren in those days. She did not bear to Abram either son or daughter. And when she saw that she bare no children, she took her handmaid Hagar, whom Pharaoh had given her, and she gave her to Abram for her husband for a wife. And Hagar learned all the ways of Sarai, as Sarai taught her. She was not in any way deficient in following her good ways. And Sarai said to Abram, Behold, here is my handmaid Hagar. Go to her, that she may bring forth upon my knees, that I may also obtain children through her. And at the end of 10 years of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, which is the 85th year of Abram's life, Sarai gave Hagar unto him. And Abram hearkened to the voice of his wife Sarai, and he took his handmaid Hagar, and Abram came to her, and she conceived. And when Hagar saw that she had conceived, she rejoiced greatly, and her mistress was despised in her eyes. And she said within herself, This can only be that I am better before God than Sarai, my mistress. For all the days that my mistress has been with my Lord, she did not conceive, but me the Lord has caused in so short a time to conceive by him. And when Sarai saw that Hagar had conceived by Abram, Sarai was jealous of her handmaid. And Sarai said within herself, This is surely nothing else but that she must be better than I am. And Sarai said unto Abram, My wrong be upon thee, for at the time when thou didst pray before the Lord for children, why didst thou not pray on my account, that the Lord should give me seed from thee? And when I speak to Hagar in thy presence, she despiseth my words, because she has conceived, and thou wilt say nothing to her. May the Lord judge between me and thee for what thou hast done to me. And Abram said to Sarai, Behold, thy handmaiden is in thy hand. Do unto her as it may seem good in thine eyes. And Sarai afflicted her, and Hagar fled from her to the wilderness. And an angel of the Lord found her in the place where she had fled, by a well. And he said to her, Do not fear, for I will multiply thy seed, for thou shalt bear a son, and thou shalt call his name Ishmael. Now then return to Sarai thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. And Hagar called the place of that well Ber-lahai-roi. It is between Kadesh and the wilderness of Bered. And Hagar at that time returned to her master's house. And at the end of days Hagar bare a son to Abram, and Abram called his name Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when he begat him. That's the Jasher account.
Awesome.
Which takes us into Genesis 15 territory too, I believe. So we can cover that also.
Okay, sounds good. I've got a couple things pulled up that are connected to this as well. I'll read from the writings of Abraham. Now when Sarah saw that she bare neither son nor daughter, it grieved her heart. And she said unto me, Take therefore Hagar, daughter of Pharaoh, to be thy wife, for she is a woman now. And let her come into my bed, and let her womb be unto thee in the place of mine to raise up seed unto thee. Hagar also was willing to enter this covenant, and it was according to the voice of the Spirit of God. Wherefore Sarah gave Hagar to be my wife, and Sarah and Hagar were as one wife, and to that the seed of Hagar might be also the seed of Sarah. For Hagar had been raised by Sarah, and had been taught by her, and had followed Sarah in ways of righteousness. And when I came in unto Hagar in Sarah's bed, she conceived. And when Hagar saw that she had conceived, she rejoiced greatly, and began to be lifted up in pride, and to despise Sarah. And she taunted Sarah, saying, Surely I am better than thee, for in all the years thy Lord hath lain with thee, thou hast not conceived. But lo, in this short time I have conceived from the seed of my Lord. And Sarah was grieved in her heart, and she said unto me, Surely Hagar hath wronged me, and thou also hast contributed to her wrong, for she hath spoken despitefully to me in thy presence, yet thou hast done nothing to correct her. But I replied to Sarah, Surely Hagar is thy child, for thou hast instructed her from her youth. Correct her therefore as seemeth thee good. However, when Sarah attempted to correct Hagar, Hagar grew angry and determined to return unto her father's people. Wherefore she departed into the wilderness. But an angel of the Lord met her by a well where she stopped to rest. And he said unto her, Hagar, daughter of Sarah, who gave thee unto her husband Abraham, and took thee into her own bed, that thou mightest raise up seed unto her? Why art thou thus fleeing into the wilderness from the camp of Abraham? And Hagar replied, I am returning to the land of my father, for it grieveth me to be bound to Sarah. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Return unto Sarah, and be subject unto her, for she is given to thee to be a mother unto thee, and this seed is hers as well as yours. The Lord will multiply thy seed exceedingly, so that it shall not be numbered for multitude, and thou shalt bear a son, and shalt call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy prayers and answered them. He will be a man of the desert and a man of war. Nonetheless, many shall join themselves unto him, and his people shall be great. Hagar replied, What shall I say? Is the name of him who beareth these glad tidings? And the angel replied, Bir laharoi, for know thou that God seeth thee in all places, whithersoever thou shalt be. And Hagar said, I know that God seeth me, for he hath this day sent his angel to minister unto me. Wherefore Hagar returned into the tent of Sarah, and at the appointed time she bare unto me a son, and I called his name Ishmael, according to the word of the angel. And I was 86 years old when Hagar bare Ishmael unto me. I'll stop there for this particular one. Did you want to go ahead and go into the King James?
Yeah, sure. I'm looking up what Ishmael means. Ishmael. Oh, God will hear. Yeah. Okay. Let me switch over to Genesis 15. Oops. Hang on a second. Okay. Genesis 15. There we go. After these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward. And Abram said, Lord God, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless, and the reward of my house, and the steward of my house is Eleazar of Damascus? And Abram said, Behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is mine heir. And behold, the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, the word of the Lord, I haven't noticed that before. The word of the Lord came unto him, saying, This shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir. And he brought him forth abroad, and said, Look now toward heaven, and tell the stars, and if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, So shall thy seed be. And he believed the Lord, and he counted it to him for righteousness. And he said unto him, I am the Lord that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees to give thee this land to inherit. And he said, Lord God, see, this is interesting to me, because I got to stop here just to make a comment here. This says, the word of the Lord came to me. So right there we know, based on John 1, the word was with God, the word was God, and the word became flesh, dwelt among us, and that's Yeshua. And he says, of course in King James we have capital L-O-R-D, but that's Yod He Vav He. And he said, so he's talking to the word of the Lord, and he said, Yod He Vav He Elohim, Yahuwah Elohim, which that to me says that Yeshua has to be Yahuwah, or at least some portion of him. I'm of the opinion it's his right hand. Yeshua is his physical right hand. But, I mean, this is a powerful passage right here. Just these few verses, 4 verses right here, pretty much a slam dunk, if you ask me.
I agree.
If you're looking at the wording here. It jumped out at me anyway. He said, so I'm going to go ahead and use the actual names here. And he said, Yahuwah Elohim, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said unto him, Take me an heifer of 3 years old, and a she-goat of 3 years old, and a ram of 3 years old, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he took unto him all these, and divided them in the midst, and laid each piece one against another, but the birds divided he not. And when the fowls came down upon the carcasses, Abram drove them away. And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and lo, an horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace. Thou shalt be buried in a good old age. And in the fourth generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. And it came to pass that when the sun went down, and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace, and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. In the same day Yahuwah made a covenant with Abram, saying, Unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. The Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, and the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Rephaims, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. Wow, a lot going on here, too. Something else I want to address is there's this, I don't know where people come up with some of the things they come up with, but there's this, I'll just say it, this Black Hebrew Roots movement out there that's trying to claim a 400-year prophecy for themselves. This is only a 400-year prophecy that's in here. I mean, yeah, it's actually 430 years tall. We'll have to talk about that after the break.
Yes.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. By Christine, great for heart palpitations. By Anne, before I started using this product, every afternoon my ankles and my hands would be swollen. That doesn't happen anymore. So if that part of their advertising is true, I have to assume that the rest of it is also. Not to mention that when I had my yearly blood test, only a few weeks after beginning to use this product, my cholesterol had dropped over 30 points. I'm going to continue to take it. By Croc, I love this product. It really works. By Brad, works great, thank you. Tell us your story. Get your Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Hey folks, guess what the #1 phrase that Life Change Tea receives by email? You ready? We love this tea. We love this tea. Time after time, week after week, we love this tea. Life Change Tea gives you more energy, a beautiful cleansing, and fulfills its slogan perfectly. The tea that makes you go. So if you want to be on your health game, log on to getthetea.com and order Life Change Super Strength Tea. Packages come in a 1-month supply, and when you brew this stuff, wait until you see the results. Aren't we all about the results? And with a lot of people's health struggling, we can use a little bit of help. Doctors will tell you disease starts in the gut. So log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Be our next email saying, I love this tea. I mean, I love this tea. Get the tea at getthetea.com. Helping America one tea bag at a time.
True initiation is an inward journey. It's a spiritual path that is totally inward. It has nothing to do with anything external to you.
I want to determine if the grand architect is indeed what I believe it to be, which is the artificial intelligence.
The initiatory path is one of self-discovery and self-revealing. It's not a journey that someone can hold your hand through.
Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I want to take you through the steps of initiation. Remember, you are divinity.
Step Beyond the Veil with Chris and Cherie Geo.
Fridays and Saturdays,
7 p.m. to 10 p.m.
No hate, no hype, no fear. We are TFR. your protection from deception.
And in those days, there were giants in the land, and the sons of the angels of God looked upon the daughters of men and found them fair, and took of them wives, and their sons became of old great men of renown. So they have been mixing with us on a genetic level since the time of Enoch and Ezekiel's will.
Here on Earth, we're intrigued by the sun, moon, and stars, and imagine there's got to be planets like ours. So conceive of a face on the surface of Mars, so in need of a meaning and purpose we've lost. And indeed they believe that these might be our gods, or that maybe with time we'll do right and evolve, and eventually reach what they seek, and then solve all the problems of man. But they really don't know that they call it the works of our hands, all but just filthy rags. So we travel the lands to dig up our past time, our lapses, and with it are much of the facts. Some imagine that God's came in alien class and reacted.
Why should I risk the safety of my person, seeing that I know not whether Israel possesses merits making them worthy of redemption? I have reckoned up the years with care, and I have found that but 210 have elapsed since the covenant of the pieces made with Abraham. And at that time thou didst ordain 400 years of oppression for his seed. But God overturned all his objections. He spake to Moses, saying, I will be with thee. Whatever thou desirest I will do, so that the redemption will in very truth be realized through me, in accordance with my promise to Jacob. The little ones that Israel will carry up out of Egypt, I will provide with food for 30 days. This shall prove to thee in what manner I will supply the needs of all. And as I will be at thy side, thou hast no need to fear any man. Respecting thy doubt whether Israel deserves to be redeemed, this is my answer. They will be permitted to go forth from Egypt on account of the merits they will acquire at this mountain, whereon they will receive the Torah through thee. And thy reckoning of the end is not correct, for the 400 years of bondage began with the birth of Isaac, not with the going down of Jacob into Egypt. Therefore, the appointed end hath come. I'll turn it back over to you, Rob.
Yeah, I'm glad you what was that from? What were you reading from?
This is the Legends of the Jews, and there was a second witness as well from the Perk D. Rabbi Eleazar, but I'll just turn it over to you. I don't want to read it. It's a little bit longer.
Well, yeah, but it's important that that prophecy begins with Isaac.
Exactly.
It doesn't begin in 1619
right.
A.D.
Right.
I mean, that's what people are saying. There's a whole group of people out there saying that. That's Genesis, was it 15:13? Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and let me see if I can get this on the way, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. The way I'd have to go back and look at this. It's been a long time since I did, but there's something to do with the grammar here and the way that the commas are, because they didn't have punctuation like we do. That makes it sound like they're going to be slaves for 400 years, but they're not.
Right.
All of this is going to happen in 400 years, a 400-year time period.
Yes.
And there's evidence for that, because it starts with Isaac. So we see right in Exodus, the fulfillment for all you black Hebrew rooters out there. The fulfillment is in Exodus chapter 12, verses 40 through 41. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the selfsame day it came to pass, that all the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. In Galatians, Paul says in Galatians chapter 3, verse 17, and this I say, that the covenant that was confirmed before God in Christ, the law, which was 430 years after, cannot disannul that it should make the promise of none effect. So from the giving of the promise of the covenant of Abraham until the giving of the covenant at Sinai was 430 years. There's your guardrails. If you want to figure out the 400, when that happened. Paul tells you from the giving of the promise to Abram to the coming out and the giving of the covenant at Mount Sinai is 430 years. Now, people want to say that there were slaves for 400 years or 430 years. Neither is true, because it just do it out. I mean, do a timeline out. Again, I got to put my timeline charts up here, right? From the giving of the covenant of Abraham, nobody's in Egypt until 215, other than brief trips back and forth. But it might be understood that Egypt was the world's superpower at the time. So in that sense, you may have been, like we say, we're living in Babylon, even though we live in the United States, we're under like a Babylonian system. That you may say at that time we're under an Egyptian system. Egyptian world power existed at that time. So those sojourning in a land that's not theirs, that being Canaan, because at the end of it says the Canaanite and the Hivite and all that stuff. But nobody's really in Egypt for any length of time until Joseph is sold into slavery. Joseph is born, and Joseph sold into slavery at 17 years old. So that's 215 years. 215 years from the covenant of Abraham until Joseph is is sold into slavery, and the house of Jacob comes down at 215 because of the famine in the land. Joseph is a slave there, and there's the Potiphar situation. He's in prison and all that stuff, and then he gets out, and then he's made basically second in charge of Egypt, and facilitated the saving of many people during the famine. And that's when Jacob, the house of Jacob, came down, I think numbering 70 people. That's at 215. And then they're all ruling and reigning basically like regional governors. They're living quite well in the land of Goshen for an extended period of time. And then, and I forget what passage this is in, I believe it's in the book of Isaiah, that talks about that they were afflicted by the Assyrian in Egypt. That the Pharaoh at the time of the Exodus was not a native-born Egyptian. He was an Assyrian conqueror who came in, and Chuck Missler did a whole thing on this. It was quite eye-opening, quite illuminating. And it makes sense, because if you got 215 here, the house of Jacob comes down there, everybody's living well in Goshen, surviving the famine and doing well down there. And then a Pharaoh shows up that didn't know Joseph. Well, I mean, usually one of the prerequisites for ruling a country is knowing your country's history, unless you're a conqueror. If you're a native-born American and you're running for president, you darn well better know the last 200 years of American history, at least. So for a ruler to show up, sometime within 100 years or so after the house of, after Joseph did his thing, and not to remember Joseph, that'd be pretty ridiculous. So Chuck Missler's teaching on the Assyrian that came and afflicted them in Egypt makes a lot more sense in that regard. And so best I can figure, the most you could account for them being slaves in Egypt would be, at the high side, 100 years. I tend to think probably more along 80, that they became slaves right before the birth of Moses. And of course we know the story of Moses being put in the river, Pharaoh's daughter finding him, and he gets raised in the house of Pharaoh. So 40 years in the house of Pharaoh. Then he kills the Egyptian, and then he's 40 years in the wilderness being a shepherd, and then he gets the call at age 80 to go back and say, hey, let my people go, and then there's 40 years wandering in the wilderness.
Right.
So it appears the max amount you can get for slaves in Egypt would have been 100 years, more likely closer to 80 years. But the point is, both Exodus and Galatians, two witnesses, confirm that the 400-year prophecy of Genesis chapter 15 happened thousands of years ago.
Exactly.
Not 1619. I mean,
that's funny.
It's ridiculous.
It's funny to me how people, will read and make it fit wherever they want to, just like with what we were talking about with Sarah being mentioned in this writings of Abraham as being blue-eyed and rosy-cheeked. And,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty point blank too.
Mm-hmm. And even in the, the Testament, as the testimonies of Pontius Pilate to Tiberius Caesar, Yahushua is described as having golden chestnut hair and gray or blue eyes. these are eyewitness accounts, but yet they don't want to accept, and would throw all that out as well. And then the Archgo volume, which we're going to be releasing that as well, also provides another description of Yahushua. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just looked to my right here in my little bookshelf by my desk. A good friend of mine gave me that the Archgo volume, or the archaeological writings of the Sanhedrin and Talmud of the Jews, translated by McIntosh and Twyman, unabridged edition.
Yeah, it's a fascinating. Again, provides eyewitness account. I believe from Gamaliel, or one of the Pharisees.
Yeah, I read it a long time ago. I want to say probably back in the. Well, actually, it was probably right on the time I was going through my divorce, because I was going back and forth when I was already in Texas, and I was going back and forth to Massachusetts, and then a friend of mine, he said, "I think you might like this," and I was like, "Dude, this is amazing." Yeah,
it is. It's amazing.
So you're going to do a republish of it?
Yeah, we're publishing it in larger font. My daughter-in-law Joy is working on it now, and we'll be providing it very soon.
Yeah, it's the Jonathan's interview. There's a bunch of. Let me look at the table of contents here. You got me excited. I might want to have to go back and read this again.
Oh yeah.
I just remember being pretty deeply touched when I read it. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's all the eyewitness accounts from people living during that time. That walked with and were experienced the wonders of Yahushua's incarnation and the mortal embodiment.
Yeah, chapter 1, how these records were discovered. Chapter 2, a short sketch of the Talmuds. Chapter 3, Constantine's letter in regard to having 50 copies of the scripture written and bound. Chapter 4, Jonathan's interview with the Bethlehem shepherds. So the shepherds that came to baby Jesus.
Yes.
Letter of Melchizedek, priest of the synagogue at Bethlehem. Chapter 5, Gamaliel's interview with Joseph and Mary and others concerning Jesus. Chapter 6, report of Caiaphas to the Sanhedrin concerning the execution of Jesus. Chapter 7, report of Caiaphas to the... Chapter 8, Voluse's notes Acta Pilati, or Pilate's report to Caesar of the arrest, trial, and crucifixion of Jesus. That was the one I think that really touched me.
Yes.
If I remember right. Chapter 9, Herod Antipater's defense before the Roman Senate in regard to his conduct at Bethlehem. Chapter 10, Herod Antipater's defense before the Roman... it looks like a repeat there. Oh, no. So it's his defense before the Roman Senate in regard to the execution of John the Baptist. And chapter 10, the Hillel letters regarding God's providence to the Jews by Hillel III. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so anyway, that was one of the things that stood out to me, because, I dealt with this with Dave Murphy almost relentlessly on Facebook. Because they're expecting some great exodus to happen last year. I'm like, how's your prophecy doing, buddy? We're a year late and going into year 2. Well, our calendars are off. I'm like, they're not that off since 1619, dude. That's about all I had for that. Did you have any commentary on those chapters?
Just other than, again, even the records of Pontius Pilate, they were found in the Library of Congress, and they give an eyewitness to a physical description of what Yahushua looks like, and he's described in similarity as Sarah is in the writings of Abraham. And so but then everybody else, that as far as the biblical Hebrews and the belief that Jesus was black, all the eyewitness confirming, eyewitnesses from the time that he was crucified, and Pontius Pilate and his report to Tiberius Caesar, Gamaliel, and others, they say otherwise, but yet, people won't accept it as evidence because it refutes their belief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and let me just clarify, for anybody that might want to jump to conclusions here. I don't care if he was plaid and pink polka dot. It doesn't matter to me. Like what color he was means nothing.
Nothing, right?
To me. But when I look in the text, this is what I see.
Exactly.
I don't have an agenda here. I mean, if you could show me, stuff that predates this stuff, that would describe him otherwise, I'd be like, okay. Frankly, I don't care.
Right.
The amount of melanin in somebody's skin as a barometer for whether or not anything should come into consideration is stupid. And some of these people, I'm like, okay, just tell me what shade I gotta be, because I'll work on it. If there's a melanin quantity that you gotta have to be in the in crowd, just let me know. Give me the shade scale. The whole thing's ridiculous.
Well, again, with myself, I read and study from the ancient manuscripts, and I report what they say. And if it were to say that, Yahushua was black, I'd have no problem reporting that.
Likewise.
But that's not what it says. And so, me bringing forth the eyewitness accounts and sharing them and declaring them, but then, I get largely attacked for it. And why?
You're shooting the messenger.
Exactly. And this isn't something that I wrote. I'm just sharing what the ancient eyewitnesses say themselves. And so, and it's like I have an agenda to trample down on, what it is that they're teaching, but that's not the point of it at all. I'm just sharing what they themselves report of what he physically looked like.
Exactly.
And for whatever reason, you get attacked for that.
Well, it's the same thing with biblical cosmology, and I'm telling people, like I've given up trying to answer all the questions. All the well, what about this? And everybody's looking up in the sky. What about the sun, the moon, the stars, and planets? I'm like, look, the topic is what's the shape of the ground. Why are you looking up in the sky? But even the issues on the ground. I mean, you can show the pictures, you can show the infrared, you can go out get a Nikon Coolpix P900 or P1000, do the test yourself. It doesn't matter. Like you're never going to convince these people. And so my thing is like, after 5 years, I'm moving on, guys. I've done all I can. I'm just repeating myself at this point. But
it's out there.
Yeah, my current position on it is, look, I'm not going to try to convince you that Earth's flat. I will, however, prove to you that the people in the Bible believed it, which by extension means the Holy Spirit believed it. Now you got a problem to deal with. Have a nice day.
Yeah,
I didn't write it, like you said. I'm just telling you what it says. And if you're intellectually honest with the text, which unfortunately very few people are these days, it says what it says, and there's no way around it. So.
Exactly, I agree.
So I can catch us up on Genesis also with chapter 16 based on some of the stuff we read, because this is the issue of Hagar and stuff. So I'll go ahead and read.
After that I'll read the Targum.
Okay, King Jimmy, chapter 16. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold now, Yahuwah hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived, and when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. And Sarai said unto Abram, My wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid into thy bosom. And when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. Yahuwah judge between me and thee. And Abram said unto Sarai, Behold, thy maid is in thine hand. Do to her as it pleases thee. And when Sarai dwelt hardly with her, she fled from her face. And the angel of Yahuwah found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence camest thou, and whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Return to thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. And the angel of Yahuwah said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. And the angel of Yahuwah said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael, because Yahuwah hath heard thy affliction. And he will be a wild man, his hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. And she called the name of Yahuwah that spake unto her, The God sees me. For she said, Have I also here looked after him, and seeth me? Wherefore the well was called Bir Lahai. Behold, it is between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar bare Abram a son, and Abram called his son's name, which Hagar bare, Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bare Ishmael to Abram. This just shows again, like, the children of Abraham are blessed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it gives a prophecy that he's going to be a wild man and all that, but it's like, look, you're going to have. He promised Abraham that his seed is going to be like the stars of heaven. This is his seed.
Yes.
You know, and of course we know that Ishmaelites married into the lineage of Esau and became the Arabs.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, there's been this sibling rivalry, well, really ever since,
right.
Between the children of Jacob and the children of Esau/Ishmael.
Yes.
But we see that Jacob and Esau, you know, reconciled. It was, you know, a tense reconciliation, but you know, eventually they're like, because when we get to the account of you know, Jacob deceiving his brother, and then after the Laban situation and all that stuff, and we see that Esau's coming. If I remember in the Jasher account, like Esau originally is like, yeah, I'm going to get my brother back, you know,
right?
And the angel the angel of the Lord, or the captain of the heavenly host, or somebody showed up and was like, basically gave him a smackdown. No,
right?
You're not going to mess with your brother. So it was kind of an uneasy truce, but. You know, that may be what happens, you know, finally in the end is, you know, the Heavenly Father gives everybody a smackdown and says, okay, you know, time to behave now. You know, you're all brothers here.
Let's get over all the enmity.
Yeah.
All right. From the Targum, chapter 15. After these words, when the kings had gathered together and had fallen before Abram, and 4 kings had been slain, and 9 hosts brought back, Abram reasoned in his heart and said, Woe to me, because I have received the reward of my appointments in this world, and have no portion in the world to come. Or peradventure the brethren and friends of those who have been slain will combine in legions and come against me, or that at that time there was found with me the reward of a little righteousness, so that they fell before me. But the second time reward may not be found with me, and by me the name of the heavens may be profaned. Thereupon was the word Pithgama of the Lord with Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, for if these men should gather together in legions and come against thee, my word, Memra, will be thy shield. And also if these fall before thee in this world, the reward of thy good works shall be kept and be prepared before me in the world to come, great exceedingly. And Abram said, Lord God, great blessings hast thou given me, and great are they which it is before thee to give me. Nevertheless, what profit is it to me when I pass from the world without children? And Eleazar the manager, Pharnasath, the son of sustenance of my house, by whose hands signs were wrought for or to me in Damascus, accepts to be my heir. And Abram said, Behold, to me thou hast not given a son, and behold, the manager of my house will be my heir. And behold, a word from before the Lord was to him, saying, He shall not be thine heir, but a son whom thou wilt beget shall be thy heir. And he brought him forth without and said, Look up now to the heavens and number the stars, if thou art able to number them. And he said, so will be thy sons. And he believed in the Lord and had faith in the Memra, the word of the Lord, and he reckoned it to him for righteousness. Lizeku, because he parleyed not before him with words. And he said to him, I am the Lord who brought thee out of the fiery furnace of the Kasdai to give thee this land to inherit. And he said, Lord God, by what may I know that I shall be the heir of it? And he said, bring me oblations and offer before me an heifer of 3 years, and a goat of 3 years, a ram of 3 years, and a dove, and the young of a pigeon. And he brought all these before him, divided them in the midst, and set in order every division over against its fellow. But the fowl he divided not. And there came down idolatrous peoples, which are like to unclean birds, to steal away the sacrifices of Israel. But the righteousness of Abram was a shield over them. And when the sun was nearing to set, a deep sleep was thrown upon Abram. And behold, 4 kingdoms arose to enslave his children. Terror, which is we'll pick it up on the other side. Be right back, everyone.
Truth Frequency Radio is your #1 source for news and information without the hate, hype, and fear. We're proud to feature cutting-edge programs like The Christopher Everard Show, The Covert Report with Susan Lindauer, Enemy Within Radio with Tom Barnes, Freaky Friday with The Woo Crew, The Gematria Effect with Zachary Hubbard, America's Evil Genius with Travis Cook, Phoenix Rising Radio with Phoenix, Quantum Connections with Lucky, and dozens more. Did you know you can listen from any telephone by dialing 641-793-7117 or call into your favorite show toll free at 833-TFR Live. Uncensored talk and news you won't hear in the mainstream media. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
A battle for a big state. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. With 29 electoral votes at stake, both former Vice President Biden and President Trump were in Florida today. Biden in Broward County earlier telling the crowd the president doesn't care about Latin immigrants.
Trump loves to talk, but he doesn't care about Cuban and Venezuelan people. He won't even grant temporary protective status for Venezuelans fleeing the oppressive regime of Maduro, who I met with, and he's a thug.
Biden had a second stop in Tampa this afternoon. The president was in Tampa earlier, touting the latest economic numbers.
This explosive economic growth is 4 times greater than what the experts expected. They expected a number that would be like 7%, 8%.
The GDP accelerated by 33.1% in the third quarter. A major retailer removing guns from its stores temporarily.
Walmart officials say rising tensions across the country have prompted the company to remove guns and ammunition from displays at U.S. stores. The company says the move is designed to protect customers and employees in the wake of recent isolated civil unrest. The company has pulled weapons and ammo from stores for brief periods of time in the past. The Wall Street Journal reporting guns will still be available for sale upon request. About half the stores operated by the Bensenville, Arkansas company sell firearms and ammunition. Rich Dennison, Fox News.
Instagram says the company will temporarily remove the recent tab from the hashtag pages in the U.S. The company making the announcement in a tweet saying it's making the changes to make it harder for people to come across possible misinformation. The security level in France raised to the highest level after police say a young Tunisian man armed with a knife and carrying a copy of the Quran walked into a Catholic church in Nice and killed 3 people. He was shot and seriously wounded by police. America is listening to Fox News.
are now tuned into the truth frequency.
We are TFR. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
All right, welcome back everybody for second hour. I will continue reading from the Targum. This is Genesis chapter 15. And when the sun was nearing to set, a deep sleep was thrown upon Abram. And behold, 4 kingdoms arose to enslave his children. Terror, which is Babel, darkness, which is Madai, greatness, which is Javan, decline, which is Pharas, which is to fall and to have no uplifting, and from whence it is to be that the children of Israel will come up. And he said to Abram, knowing thou must know that thy sons shall dwell in a land not their own, because thou hast not believed, and they will subjugate and afflict them 400 years. And also that the people whom they shall serve I will judge with 250 plagues, and afterwards they shall go forth into liberty with great riches. And thou shalt be gathered to thy fathers, thy soul shall rest in peace, and thou shalt be buried in a good old age. And in the 4th generation of thy sons, they will return hither to inherit, because the guilt of the Amorite is not yet complete. And when the sun had set, there was darkness. And behold, Abram saw Gehenna ascending, smoke with flaming coals and burning flakes of fire, wherewith the wicked are to be judged. And behold, he passed between those divisions. Jerusalem. After these words, when all the kings of the lands and the sultans of the provinces had gathered together and had made war against Abram the just, and had fallen before him, and he had slain of them 4 kings and had brought back 9 hosts, did Abram the just reason in his heart and say, woe now to me, because I have received the reward ordained in the present world, and have no portion in the world to come. Or peradventure the brethren and kindred of the slain who have fallen before me, who are in their cities and provinces, will combine in great legions and come against me. Or peradventure there were in my hand a few commandments in the former times, so that they fell before me when they had risen up against me. Or it may be that righteousness was found in me at the former times, that they fell before me. But at the second time it may not be found, and the heavenly name will be profaned in me. Then was the word of prophecy from the Lord unto Abram the righteous, saying, fear not, Abram, though they should gather together and come against thee with many legions, my word shall be thy reward, and thy shield in this world, and a protector over thee all the days of the world to come. And though I deliver up thy adversaries before thee, in this world the reward of thy good works is prepared for thee also before me in the world to come. And Abram said before thee, I supplicate mercy, O Lord God. Manifold blessings thou hast given me, and many hast thou before thee still to give. Nevertheless, what profit have I who go from the world childless, and Eleazar the son of my house, by whose hands signs were wrought for me in Damascus, expecteth in himself to be my heir? And he said to him, I am the Lord who brought thee out of the fiery furnace from Ur of the Kasdi. and a turtle and a young pigeon. And he brought before him all these and divided them into divisions, set one part over against its fellow. But the fowl he divided not. And when the birds descended, they came not nigh the divisions. Those birds are unclean fowl, and those unclean fowl are the kingdoms of the earth, which are worshippers of idols, and which counsel evil counsels against the sons of Israel. But the integrity of the righteous Abram hindered them, and when the sun was going down to set, a sleep profound and sweet fell upon Abram. And behold, Abram saw 4 kingdoms, which should arise to being, his sons into subjection, and terror, the greatness of darkness fell upon him. Terror, that is Babel, darkness, that is Media, greatness, that is Greece, fell, that is Edom, Rome, that 4th kingdom which is to fall, and never to rise again forever and ever. And behold, the sun went to set, and there was darkness. And Abram beheld till the seats were arrayed, and the thrones set forth. And lo, Gehenna, which was prepared for the wicked in the world to come, enveloped in burning flakes and flames of fire, into which the wicked had fallen, when in their lives they rebelled against the law, while the just who had been delivered from affliction. And all were seen by Abram, while he passed between those divisions. In that day the Lord ordained a covenant with Abram, that he would not judge therein his sons, but would deliver them from the kingdom, saying, To thy sons will I give this land, from Nilos of Mizraim unto the great river, the river Phareth, the Shalmaiah, and the Kenazah, and the Kadmonah, and the Hittite, and the Pharisee, and the Giberah, and the Amorah, and the Kene, and the Girgashe, and the Jebusite, Jerusalem, and all the sons of the east. Chapter 16. But Sarah, the wife of Abram, had not borne to him, but he had a handmaid, a Mizraitha, and her name was Hagar, a daughter of Pharaoh, whom he gave to him as a handmaid at the time that he received her, being struck by the word from before the Lord. And Sarah said to Abram, Behold, now the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. Go to my handmaid, and set her free. Perhaps I may be builded by her. And Abram hearkened to the word of Sarah. And Sarah, the wife of Abram, took Hagar the Mizraithite handmaid, when Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of the Canaan, and set her free, and gave her to Abram, her husband, to wife. And he went unto Hagar, and she conceived, and she saw that she had conceived, and the honor of her mistress was despised in her eyes. And Sarah said to Abram, All my affliction is from thee, being secure that thou wouldst do me justice. I left the land and house of my father, and came up with thee to a foreign land, and forasmuch as I was not able to become a mother, I set free my handmaid, and gave her to lie in thy bosom. And she seeth that she had conceived, and my honor is despised before her. But now is my affliction manifest before the Lord, who will spread peace between me and thee, and the land shall be replenished from us, nor shall we need the help of the progeny of Hagar, the daughter of Pharaoh, Bard Nimrod, who threw thee into the furnace of fire. Jerusalem. And Sarah said, My judgment and my affliction are delivered into thine hand. I left the house of my birth and the house of my father, and came with thee in the faith of the heavens. I have gone in with thee before kings, before Pharaoh king of Mizraim, and before Abimelech king of the Philistines. And I have said of thee, He is my brother, so that they might not kill thee. And when I saw that I was not made fruitful, I took Hagar the Mizraithite, my handmaid, and gave her to thee to wife, and said, She shall bring forth, and I will bring up whom she may bear, that I might be builded, but be it only from her. But now seeing that she hath conceived, my honor is contemned and despised in her sight. Now may the Lord appear and judge between me and thee, and fulfill mercies upon me and thee, and spread his peace between me and thee, and replenish the world from me and from thee, that we may not heed the son of Hagar the misreathed handmaid, who is of the children of the people who cast thee into the burning furnace of the Chaldean. And Abram said to Sarah, Behold, thy handmaid is under thy authority. Do to her what is right in thine eyes. And Sarah afflicted her, and she escaped from before her. And the angel of the Lord found her at the fountain of waters, in the desert, at the fountain of the waters, which is in the way of Shagra, Jerusalem, Jalitza. And he said, Hagar, handmaid of Sarah, whence comest thou? And whither dost thou go? And she said, From before Sarah, my mistress, I have escaped. And the angel of the Lord said to her, Return to thy mistress, and be subject unto her hand. And the angel of the Lord said to her, Multiplying, I will multiply thy sons, and they shall not be numbered for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said to her, Behold, thou art with child, and thou wilt bear a son, and thou shalt call his name Ishmael, because thy affliction is revealed before the Lord, and he shall be like the wild ass among men. His hand shall take vengeance of his adversaries, and the hands of his adversaries be put forth to do him evil. And in the presence of all his brethren shall he be commingled. Yitharib Arabized, and shall dwell.
Say that again.
And shall dwell, and she gave thanks before the Lord, whose word spake to her. Oh, that's interesting. The angel of the Lord is said to be the word here.
Yeah, that's a point blank right there. That's in, you're reading the Targum?
Yeah, the Targum. Gave thanks before the Lord, whose word spake to her, and thus said, Thou art he who livest and art eternal, who seest but art not seen. For she said, For behold, here is revealed the glory of the Shekinah of the Lord after a vision. Jerusalem. And Hagar gave thanks and prayed in the name of the word of the Lord, who had been manifested to her. Yeah, it seems to, the angel of the Lord is equated to being the word of the Lord here.
Point blank.
Yep. And prayed in the name of the word of the Lord, who had been manifested to her, saying, Blessed be thou, Eloah, the living one of all ages, who hast looked upon my affliction. For she said, Behold, thou art manifested also unto me, even as thou wast manifested to Sarah, my mistress. Wherefore she called the well at which the living and eternal one was revealed. And behold, it is situate between Rechem and Shalusta. And Hagar bare Abram a son, and Abram called the name of his son whom Hagar bare Ishmael. And Abram was the son of 86 years when Hagar bare Ishmael to Abram.
Yeah, good stuff. There was something about turtles earlier. King James makes the same, well, it's hard to say mistake. We would say mistake in 21st century English. Apparently that must have been, we need to understand turtle doves, not amphibians.
Right.
I had this debate with, Mike Hoggard back in like 2013. I'm like, yeah, okay, because he's like Captain King James only, like nothing else, And I'm like, okay, well, go ahead and bring turtles, see what happens, It's not what anybody that see you do that would laugh you to scorn. It's not turtles, it's turtle doves. It is interesting, though. I think you read this last week, because some of it sounded familiar to me, about the animals representing kingdoms that was in the Genesis 15 covenant.
Right. Yeah, actually, in the writings of Abraham, it describes how those animals are connected to different aspects. And so, yeah, and because I had read that last week, I didn't read it again here. But
so the writings of Abraham is just complementing the Targum.
Yeah, it's it brings forth exactly, even the dream of the darkness and the four kingdoms
and the Gehenna and all that.
Mm-hmm. But it does say about each of the creatures that they are representative of, specific aspects of the kingdoms that would oppress, just like even Daniel's vision.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then the doves were connected to the word of the Lord as Messiah.
Yeah, so this Targum had to have been the one you're reading. I don't know if it was in Jerusalem or whatever, but it had to have been post first century for them to have understood Rome. Because it said parenthetically Rome.
It does have that in that. Yeah.
Like Greece was this and that, and it said parenthetically Rome, or that was just an English translator's insert.
Yeah, that was the Jerusalem, which is a later version.
Yeah, it's pretty.
One is Ben Uziel and one is Onkelos.
Yeah. Jake Grant has started to incorporate Targums into his readings for Shabbat. So
really?
That's awesome. He's
He's
gotten quite excited about it. We talked about in the last few virtual house churches where he's like, dude, I'm like, yes, tell me about it. We've been covering it, for hundreds of hours here.
Yeah. A lot of people have contacted me and thanked me for, making them available, and in doing the, like you with the virtual house church, that they are incorporating the Targums in their reading and studies, and are finding the information to be a great blessing to them, as far as the elaboration and detail.
Well, yeah, I mean, it stirs up more discussion, because, I mean, look, we're on Genesis 15 or 16 now, right? And it's been, 200-something hours that we've been given commentary. Like, you can't do that with just King James.
Right.
If that's all you have, then you're missing so much. And this, well, I mean, I've always believed that the angel of the Lord, whenever he appeared, was a pre-incarnate Yeshua anyway. But I mean, the Targum, that's like the angel of the Lord is the word of the Lord, and the word of the Lord is Yeshua. So I mean, there's some pretty significant connecting of the dots going on right there. That's point blank.
Absolutely. And which, again, is why I believe people should read and study from these parallel accounts, because it does bless you in your studies if you're wanting to understand and get confirming witness to what is only suspect, in from a lot of the other accounts, because they remain more ambiguous.
Yeah. So, I don't really have anything more on that, do you? On what we just covered?
No, I can read from the Legends of the Jews.
Okay. Before moving on to chapter 17.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah, the birth of Ishmael.
Okay.
The covenant of the pieces whereby the fortunes of his descendants were revealed to Abraham was made at a time when he was still childless. As long as Abraham and Sarah dwelt outside of the Holy Land, they looked upon their childlessness as a punishment for not abiding within it. But when a 10 years sojourn in Palestine found her barren as before, Sarah perceived that the fault lay with her. Without a trace of jealousy, she was ready to give her slave Hagar to Abraham as wife, first making her a freed woman. For Hagar was Sarah's property, not her husband's. She had received her from Pharaoh, the father of Hagar. Taught and bred by Sarah, she walked in the same path of righteousness as her mistress, and thus was a suitable companion for Abraham. And instructed by the Holy Spirit, he acceded to Sarah's proposal. No sooner had Hagar's union with Abraham been consummated, and she felt that she was with child. Then she began to treat her former mistress contemptuously, though Sarah was particularly tender towards her in the state in which she was. When noble matrons came to see Sarah, she was in the habit of urging them to pay a visit to poor Hagar too. The dames would comply with her suggestion, but Hagar would use the opportunity to disparage Sarah. My lady Sarah, she would say, is not inwardly what she appears to be outwardly. She makes the impression of a righteous, pious woman, but she is not, for if she were, how could her childlessness be explained after so many years of marriage, while I became pregnant at once? Sarah scorned to bicker with her slave, yet the rages she felt found vent in these words to Abraham. It is thou who art doing me wrong. Thou hearest the words of Hagar, and thou sayest not to oppose them? And I hope that thou wouldst take my part. For thy sake did I leave my native land and the house of my father, and I followed thee into a strange land with trust in God. In Egypt I pretended to be thy sister, that no harm might befall thee. When I saw that I should bear no children, I took the Egyptian woman whose slave Hagar, and gave her unto thee for wife, contenting myself with the thought that I would rear the children she would bear. Now she treats me disdainfully in thy presence. Oh, that God might look upon the injustice which hath been done unto me, to judge between thee and me, and have mercy upon us. Restore peace to our home, and grant us offspring, that we have no need of children from Hagar, the Egyptian bondwoman of the generation of the heathen, that cast thee in the fiery furnace. Abraham, modest and unassuming as he was ready to do justice to Sarah, and he conferred full power upon her to dispose of Hagar according to her pleasure. He added but one caution. Having once made her a mistress, we cannot again reduce her to the state of a bondwoman. Unmindful of this warning, Sarah exacted the services of a slave from Hagar. Not alone this, she tormented her, and finally she cast an evil eye upon her, so that the unborn child dropped from her, and she ran away. On her flight she was met by several angels, and they bade her return, at the same time making known to her that she would bear a son, who should be called Ishmael, one of the 6 men who have been given a name by God before their birth, and the others being Isaac, Moses, Solomon, Josiah, and the Messiah. 13 years after the birth of Ishmael, the command was issued to Abraham that he put the sign of the covenant upon his body and upon the bodies of the male members of his household. Abraham was reluctant at first to do the bidding of God, for he feared that the circumcision of his flesh would raise a barrier between himself and the rest of mankind. But God said unto him, Let it suffice thee that I am their God and thy Lord, as it sufficeth the world that I am its God and its Lord. Do you want me to stop here or continue to finish out this part?
We got 3 minutes before the break. You can probably keep going, I guess, and then I can pick up after that.
All right, sounds good. Abraham then consulted with his 3 true friends, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, regarding the command of the circumcision. The first one spoke and said, Thou art nigh unto 100 years old, and thou considerest inflicting such pain upon thyself? The advice of the second was also against it. What, said Eshcol, thou choosest to mark thyself, so that thy enemies may recognize thee without fail? Mamre the third was the only one to advise obedience to the command of God. God succored thee from thy fiery furnace, he said. He helped thee in the combat with the kings. He provided for thee during the famine, and thou dost hesitate to execute his behest concerning the circumcision? Accordingly, Abraham did as God had commanded in bright daylight, bidding defiance to all, that none might say, Had we seen him attempt it, we should have prevented him. The circumcision was performed on the 10th day of Tishri, the Day of Atonement, and upon the spot on which the altar was later to be erected in the temple. For the act of Abraham remains the never-ceasing atonement for Israel.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's wild, man. And he's talking with giants. Hey, what do you think?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty hardcore right there.
Very interesting.
And I wasn't aware of it being on the Day of Atonement either.
No, I wasn't either. But yeah, that is fascinating. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, he's almost 100 years old, and they're like, dude, really? You're going to do this?
Like, right. Oh, my gosh. The pain, yeah.
Although it is like that you're going to be known among, like, what do they have, like a penis checking schedule or so? Like, how would they know? Like,
right.
You know, it's
right.
like, how would anybody know? I always been like, it's, you know, it seems strange to me, you know, that, like, it's a big deal. I mean, I get it, I understand it, but like, who was checking?
Right. And
you know,
unless they're like bathing in the nude.
Yeah, there must be some kind of outdoor something or another that they're doing.
Yeah.
Or at least getting naked frequently enough to be noticed by people anyway.
Yeah, because the distinction, certainly they were considerate of it. All right, we'll be right back, everyone.
Hey everyone, it's Chris Gio, founder of Truth Frequency Radio and host of Beyond the Veil. The mainstream media and establishment are running scared right now, and they've prominently featured TruthFrequencyRadio.com as number 89 on the federal government's hit list, also known as the fake news list, which is essentially a list of sites slated for censorship on Facebook, YouTube, Google, and other social media. Now is the time for you to get involved. Share your favorite TFR shows far and wide on forums and social media. Tell your friends and family about your favorite shows. If you're a business owner, get in touch with us to feature your product or service right here on TFR. And if you haven't done so already, become a TFR supporter now and get unlimited commercial-free downloads in high quality.
Visit truthfrequencyradio.com/signup.
Thank you for making TFR the leader in independent and uncensored talk radio. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection
from deception.
Poor water quality is a major health issue, and it's only getting worse. Municipalities can't keep up, standards have dropped, and pollutants are increasing. Where does it all end? It ends by keeping the pollutants outside of your home with HydroCare's advanced systems available at Wave Home Solutions. No less than the best purification materials and processes have been developed by HydroCare to provide you with healthy, clean water for drinking, cooking, and showering. HydroCare far surpasses the competition in removing chlorine, odors, iron, lead, chemicals, limescale, and much more. Don't settle for less when it comes to your water. We'll take care of the toughest water problems for you. It's from a city or well source. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, call 888-997-WAVE. That's 888-997-WAVE. Or go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
More than a dozen astronauts have officially reported UFOs. Hundreds of hours of UFO footage were filmed by astronauts aboard the space shuttle. Many of these UFOs can only be seen in ultraviolet light. Retired former Apollo astronauts and cosmonauts now tell their stories of their own personal UFO encounters.
The Enigma Channel, intelligent television for planet Earth. EnigmaTV.com.
Real people, real radio. Wherever you are, make it TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for a final segment. As per usual, the show is flying by.
Oh, man.
But covering a lot of really incredible information and very relevant for consideration.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will turn it back over to you.
Oh, okay. Let me switch over to Genesis 17, I guess. Somebody in the chat room said, "Do they get a Black & Decker Pecker Checker verification badge or something when they're done?" That's hilarious. Oh man. Okay. All right. Genesis 17. And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, the Lord appeared to Abram and said unto him, "I am the Almighty Elohim, walk before me and be thou perfect, and I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly." And Abram fell on his face, and Elohim talked with him, saying, "As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name be or any more be Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee. And I will make thee exceeding fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee in their generation, for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession. And I will be their Elohim." And Elohim said unto Abraham, "Thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant, which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised, and ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations. He that is born in the house or bought with money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house, and he that is bought with thy money, must needs be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised man-child, whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant." And Elohim said unto Abraham, "For Sarai thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall her name be. And I will bless her, and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her." Then Abram fell upon his face and laughed, and said in his heart, "Shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear?" And Abram said unto God, "Oh, that Ishmael might live before thee." And God said, "Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard thee. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year. And he left off talking with him, and Elohim went up from Abraham. And Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and all that were bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the selfsame day, as God had said unto him. And Abraham was 90 years old and 9 when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael his son was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. In the selfsame day was Abraham circumcised, and Ishmael his son. And all the men of his house, born in the house, and bought with money of the stranger, were circumcised with him. Dude, that had to have been one rough conversation. Like, like I'd have been like, okay, you say you heard from God, right? Yeah, I need to hear from him too, bro.
Right? Let me get a confirming witness.
Yeah, I'm going to need to lay the fleece out on this one, man.
I'm going to need a dream or something.
Right? I mean, you got to know that's what, that's pretty, I mean, I was done when I was eight days old, so I don't remember it. But if I was 13 or any other age of, knowing.
You said he told you what?
Yeah, he said what? I'm like, I don't know, man.
Are you sure about that?
I'm gonna need to get a witness, man. I always wondered about that. Why is this the sign? And the conclusion I came to when I was actually doing research on the Nephilim from our Archon Invasion series was that this is all about seed.
Right.
And ultimately it's the seed war that was established in Genesis 3:15, and so what better place to make the covenant than in the seed dispenser? Like, I mean, if you're gonna raise up seed, that's what you're gonna do it with. So that's the item that needs to have the covenant. So effectively the seed, like all covenant, is cut cut with blood. So, essentially it's coming through the blood, of the seed dispenser, that the seed is the promise is coming through.
Yeah, and the other thing is that the whole thing of that we are to live for the spirit and not the flesh. That it seems to be connected to that as well, because this is what we bear children and continue as far as the continuation of the race and all of that. But then the real covenant is eternal salvation through Christ, and that this is trumps even that of the flesh.
Yeah, Adam from Parable of the Vineyard is joining us in the chat room there. He said in the Targums, I will set my covenant between my word and thee, and I will multiply thee very greatly.
Yes.
There it is again, man. That's huge.
Yeah, it's in the writings of Abraham that way as well. But I'll read from the Targum. Chapter 17, and then at some point you need to pick up with Jubilees too.
Oh yeah, I don't know if we get to it tonight, but we can certainly try.
Yeah. We don't want to
get too far behind. Yeah, right.
All right, chapter 17, the Targum. And Abram was the son of 99 years, and the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am El Shaddai, serve before me and be perfect. Shalem in thy flesh, and I will set my covenant between my word and thee, and I will multiply thee very greatly. And because Abram was not circumcised, he was not able to stand, but he bowed himself upon his face, and the Lord spake with him, saying, Behold, I have confirmed or divided my covenant with thee, and thou shalt be the father of many peoples, and thy name shall be no more called Abram, but Abraham shall be thy name, because to be the father of a great multitude of peoples have I appointed thee. And I will make thee exceeding fruitful, and will set thee for congregations, and kings ruling over peoples shall come forth from thee. And I have established my covenant between my word and thee, and thy sons after thee, in their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be a God to thee and to thy sons after thee. And I will give to thee and to thy sons after thee the land of thy habitation, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be to them Eloah. And the Lord said to Abraham, and thou shalt observe my covenant, thou and thy sons after thee, in their generations. This is my covenant that you shall observe between my word and you, and your sons after you. Every male of you being circumcised, though he have not a father to circumcise him. And you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, as a sign of the covenant between my word and you. And the son of 8 days shall be circumcised among you, every male in your generations, from him who is brought up in your house, or bought with your silver, unto every son of the peoples who is not of you. He who is circumcised shall circumcise him who is brought up among you, or bought with your silver. And it shall be my covenant in your flesh, for a covenant forever. And the uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, unless he have some one to circumcise him, that man shall be cut off from his people. He hath made my covenant to pass away. And the Lord said to Abraham, the name of Sarah, thy wife, shall be no more called Sarah, for Sarah shall be her name. And I will bless in her body, and will also give from her a son to thee, and I will bless him, and he shall be for assemblies, and kings ruling over nations shall be from her. And Abraham fell on his face and wondered, and said in his heart, shall the son of 100 years have progeny? And Sarah, the daughter of 90 years, bear a child? Jerusalem. And Abraham bowed upon his face and wondered. And Abraham said before the Lord, may not Ishmael be established and serve before thee? And the Lord said, in truth, Sarah, thy wife, shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name Isaac. And with him I will confirm my covenant for an everlasting covenant to his sons after him. And concerning Ishmael, I have heard thy prayer. Behold, I have blessed him, and I will spread him abroad, and multiply him very greatly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will give to him to be a great people. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to thee at this time in the year after. And he ceased speaking with him, and the glory of the Lord ascended from Abraham. And Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all brought up in his house, and all bought with money every male among the household, people of Abraham, and he circumcised the flesh of their foreskin on the same day in which the Lord spake with him. And Abraham was the son of 99 years when he circumcised the flesh of his foreskin. In the same day, in the 14th year, was Abraham circumcised, and Ishmael his son, and every man of his house, the house trained, and the purchase with money of the sons of the people was circumcised with him.
All right. Yeah, I don't have anything more on that. Do you?
No, but it is interesting that in the next portion of the Targum, as we move on, that the story of Ishmael's circumcision, he ends up boasting to Isaac, once he is born.
Yeah.
And then Isaac, declares that even if God should want his life, that he would be willing to give it. And it's after that then Abraham and Isaac are tried, and that it's on the Passover that he is to offer him in sacrifice. And so we'll get to that story very soon. But it is very interesting that the circumcision of Ishmael leads to that particular trial and tribulation.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. We'll get to that. I guess we got a little bit of time, 15 minutes or so. We left off in Jubilees, chapter 13 was the last one I read. So I'm not sure how far behind we are here, but we'll see if we can get caught up a little bit anyway.
Yeah.
After these things, in the 4th year of this week, on the new moon of the 3rd month, the word of the Lord, there it is again, came to Abram in a dream, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy defender, and thy reward will be exceeding great. And he said, Lord, Lord, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go hence childless? And the son of Mesech, the son of my handmaiden, is the Demesech Eleazar. He will be my heir, and to me thou hast given no seed. And he said unto him, This man will not be thy heir, but one that will come out of thine own bowels, he will be thine heir. And he brought me forth abroad, and he brought him forth abroad, and said unto him, Look toward heaven, and number the stars, if thou art able to number them. And he looked toward heaven, and beheld the stars. And he said unto him, So shall thy seed be. And he believed in the Lord, and it was counted to him for righteousness. And he said unto him, I am the Lord that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees to give thee the land of the Canaanites, to possess it forever. And I will be God unto thee, and to thy seed after thee. And he said, Lord, Lord, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said unto him, Take me an heifer of 3 years, and a goat of 3 years, and a sheep of 3 years, and a turtle dove, and a pigeon. And he took all these in the middle of the month, and he dwelt at the oak of Mamre, which is near Hebron. And he built there an altar, and sacrificed all these, and he poured their blood upon the altar, and divided them in the midst, and laid them over against each other. But the birds divided he not. And the birds came down upon the pieces, and Abram drove them away, and did not suffer the birds to touch them. And it came to pass, when the sun had set, that an ecstasy fell upon Abram, and lo, an horror of great darkness fell upon him. And it was said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and they shall bring them into bondage, and afflict them 400 years. And the nation also to whom they will be in bondage will I judge, and after that they shall come forth thence with much substance. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace, and be buried in a good old age. But in the 4th generation they shall return hither, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. And he awoke from his sleep, and he arose, and the sun had set, and there was a flame, and behold, a furnace was smoking, and a flame of fire passed between the pieces. And on that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, To thy seed will I give this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates, the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Perizzites, and the Raphaim, the Phacharites, and the Hivites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. And the day passed, and Abram offered the pieces and the birds, and their fruit offerings, and their drink offerings, and the fire devoured them. And on that day we made a covenant with Abram, according as we had covenanted with Noah in this month. And Abram renewed the festival and ordinance for himself forever. And Abram rejoiced, and made all these things known to Sarai his wife. And he believed that he would have seed, but she did not bear. And Sarai advised her husband Abram, and said unto him, Go in unto Hagar, my Egyptian maid. It may be that I shall build up seed unto thee by her. And Abram hearkened unto the voice of Sarai his wife, and said unto her, Do so. And Sarai took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, and gave her to Abram, her husband, to be his wife. And he went in unto her, and she conceived and bare him a son. And he called his name Ishmael, in the 5th year of this week, 1965 A.M. And this was the 86th year in the life of Abram. Chapter 15. And in the 5th year of the 4th week of this Jubilee, in the 3rd month, in the middle of the month, Abram celebrated the feast of the firstfruits of the grain harvest. And he offered new offerings on the altar, the firstfruits of the produce unto the Lord, an heifer, and a goat, and a sheep on the altar, and a burnt sacrifice unto the Lord. Their fruit offerings and their drink offerings he offered upon the altar with frankincense. And the Lord appeared unto Abram, and said unto him, I am God Almighty. Approve thyself before me, and be thou perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and I will multiply thy seed exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, and said, Behold, my ordinance is with thee, and thou shalt be the father of many nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name from henceforth, even forever, shall be Abraham. For the father of many nations have I made thee. And I will make thee very great, and I will make thee into nations, and kings shall come forth from thee. And I shall establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed before thee, throughout their generations, for an eternal covenant, so that I may be a God unto thee, and to thy seed after thee. And I will give in to thy seed he, I guess is a typo here, land where thou hast been a sojourner, the land of Canaan, that thou mayest possess it forever, and I will be their God. And the Lord said unto Abraham, As for thee, do thou keep my covenant, thou and thy seed after thee, and circumcise ye every male among you, and circumcise your foreskins. And it shall be a token of an eternal covenant between me and you. And the child on the 8th day ye shall circumcise, every male throughout your generations, him that is born in the house, or whom ye have bought with money from any stranger, whom ye have acquired, who is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house shall surely be circumcised, and those whom thou hast bought with money shall be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an eternal ordinance. And the uncircumcised male, who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, on the 8th day, that soul shall be cut off from the people, for he has broken my covenant. And God said unto Abram, As for Sarai, thy wife, her name shall no more be called Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. And I will bless her, and give her a son by her. And I will bless him, and he shall become a nation, and kings of nations shall proceed from him. And Abram fell on his face and rejoiced, and said in his heart, Shall a son be born to him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bring forth? And Abram said unto God, O that Ishmael might live before thee. And God said, Yea, and Sarah also shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him, an everlasting covenant, and for his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, also have I heard thee, and behold, I will bless him, and make him great, and multiply him exceedingly, and he shall beget 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to thee, in these days, in the next year. And he left off speaking with him, and God went up from Abraham. And Abraham did according as God had said unto him, and he took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and whom he had bought with his money, every male in his house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin. And on the selfsame day was Abram circumcised, and all the men of his house, and those born in his house, and all those whom he had bought with money from the children of the stranger, were circumcised with him. This law is for all generations forever, and there is no circumcision of the days, and no omission of one day out of the 8 days, for it is an eternal ordinance, ordained and written on the heavenly tablets. I guess it doesn't end at the cross then. And everyone, if words mean things, and everyone that is born, the flesh of whose foreskin is not circumcised on the 8th day, belongs not to the children of the covenant, which the Lord made with Abraham, but to the children of destruction. Rorge. Nor is there, moreover, any sign on him that he is the Lord's, but he is destined to be destroyed and slain from the earth, and to be rooted out of the earth, for he has broken the covenant of the Lord our God. And for all the angels of the presence, and all the angels of sanctification, have been so created from the day of their creation, and before the angels of the presence of the angels of sanctification, he hath sanctified Israel, that they should be with him and with his holy angels. And do thou command the children of Israel, and let them observe the sign of this covenant for their generations as an eternal ordinance, and they will not be rooted out of the land. For the command is ordained for a covenant, that they should observe it forever among all the children of Israel. Guess who you're grafted into if you're out there, dear Christians, saying, Judaizer! Read Romans chapter 11. For Ishmael and his sons and his brothers and Esau, the Lord did not cause to approach him, and he chose them not because they are the children of Abraham, because he knew them, but he chose Israel to be his people, and he sanctified it and gathered it from amongst all the children of men. For there are many nations and many peoples, and all are his, and over all hath he placed spirits in authority to lead them astray from him. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But over Israel he did not appoint an angel or spirit, for he alone is their ruler. And he will preserve them and require them at the hand of his angels and his spirits and at the hand of his powers, in order that he may preserve them and bless them, and that they may be his and he may be theirs from henceforth forever. And now I announce unto thee that the children of Israel will not keep true to this ordinance, and they will not circumcise their sons according to all this law, for in the flesh of their circumcision they will omit this circumcision of their sons, and all of them, sons of Beliar, will leave their sons uncircumcised as they were born. And there will be great wrath from the Lord against the children of Israel, because they have forsaken his covenant, and torn aside from his word, and provoked and blasphemed, insomuch as they do not observe the ordinance of this law, for they have treated their members like the Gentiles, so that they may be removed and rooted out of the land. And there will no more be pardon or forgiveness unto them, so that there should be forgiveness and pardon for all the sin of this eternal error. Wow, we got
excellent.
We just finished in time, but there's so much to comment here. So
right,
let's do the first segment of my show next week, dealing with the Jubilees account here. We'll reread it if we have to. Then the rest good. For the 200th thing, we'll do call-in shows.
All right, sounds good, man. Be blessed. Good night, all.